Terminating WEF, Global Digital Enslavement with Silver. Hi, my name is David Jensen. If you like this presentation, please hit the like button and do subscribe to my new Substack. Details are on the last slide of the presentation. The World Economic Forum, or the WEF, this is a Swiss organization to promote transition of society to a global controlled technocracy. It was founded in 1971 by engineer Klaus Schwab. It's funded by more than 1,000 corporations and individuals. Here's the link to their list of all their funding sources here at weforum.org. The members include politicians, corporate leaders, and high net worth individuals. Here are on this slide are just a few of the name brands of companies that are supporting this global controlled technocracy, and the names of them came from that list of financing sources. Okay, the World Economic Forum, or the WEF, here are some of their promoted policies. End to private property and family farms, global government and widespread central planning. The population is to be moved into megacities along the lines of the Agenda 2030 of the UN. The end of cheap energy, which is oil. Industrially produced foods versus food produced on farms, so grasshoppers, grubs, etc. These can all be produced in warehouses within cities. Along with that, of course, goes what they call rewilding and deindustrialization of a great portion of our land mass. The warehousing of people in micro apartments in these megacities, social credit scoring along the Chinese Communist Party model, where they monitor what you do, and if you lose points, they take away your privileges and ultimately access to money and your ability to function. A central bank digital currency, or a CBDC. This is a currency with no physical representation. It is all digitally held and accessed through your phone. Universal basic income, where everybody gets a check every month from the government, and also the Great Reset, or economic collapse. And this is a shock therapy transition of society, much as what happened in the former Soviet Union. Keep in mind that the average life expectancy for a Soviet male dropped to 58 years old at that point because of their deaths during that transition. And the control of masses by central planners using digital stalking tools is the overall theme that we're seeing, and it's really repackaged communism for the 2020s using some of the latest tech tools. Now, the WEF like to refer to themselves, you hear many of their members referring to themselves, and the press referring to them as elites. And really, when you listen to what they say, they are elitists and not elites. Much of what they say is vapid, it's unsupported, and it's based, the nearest I can tell, on an urge to be part of an inside team of global controllers. The WEF, this is a slide, a shot from a presentation they did in 2016, and their promotion at that time was, "You'll own nothing and you'll be happy," and that goes along with the theme of no property ownership. So that changed a little bit in my most recent slide, where they're now saying psychologists say a good life doesn't have to be happy or even meaningful. So they're managing expectations here as it becomes clearer and clearer that the public is seeing this drastic slowdown that we're heading for. One WEF focus, and it's a concerning focus, is this chap Yuval Harari, who is Klaus Schwab's lead advisor, and he refers to useless people and useless eaters, and these are the people that won't fit in the new technocratic society that the WEF are planning. And his prescription for how to address these useless eaters is drugs and video games to keep them occupied. Now, by the way, these useless eaters will continue to eat while they're taking drugs and using video games, so it's not really clear, it's not clear at all, actually, how this solution is going to solve any problems. The WEF updated global totalitarian system. So how do we stop this global subjugation plan? Every totalitarian system needs to be able to create and control a currency, both because of destructive impacts of their policies, so they need to continually refinance by creating money that they can use, and also through controlling the money of citizens. Now, the central bank digital currency is at the heart of the WEF Great Reset implementation to this technocratic society that they have planned. Now, the CBDC funds both the universal basic income payment and allows a social credit control with currency cut off to anybody that doesn't follow the policies of the controllers. So if you post items on the web which are unappealing to the WEF's central planners, given that it's a digital currency with no physical manifestation, it gives them the ability to limit your account or cut off your account to control your behavior. It's a strong incentive, and we've seen the use of social credit increasing in China, and much of what China is doing is modeled on the WEF's big picture plan. So if we stop or bypass the central bank digital currency, we can stop totalitarian control. So how do we do that? Sound money is the kryptonite of CBDC, or central bank digital currency. Both gold and silver are sound money forms. Their intrinsic value, their physical intrinsic value, is their key strength. It's been a fair measure money for 4,000 years, since biblical times. And it's despised by central planners and totalitarians as it can't be created by dictate. And it puts wealth and control in the hands of citizens. So this is antithetical and completely in reverse of what the WEF is promoting. Now, silver is of the greatest concern, I believe, to central planners because it is highly dispersed in the hands of the public. There are 25 billion ounces held globally by citizens out of about 45 billion ounces ever produced. And throughout history, this was the primary day-to-day money. This is what was used for paying your bills, for buying food, buying energy, paying for rent, etc. So what has happened now is that since the late 1980s, the price of silver has been kept low. And it continues to be kept low so that it is forgotten, and so that it's not recognized and it doesn't start to circulate again. This is a long-standing process. It's been going on for well more than a century. Both Germany and the US officially demonetized silver in 1873, defining their currency as units of gold, of gold at the time. And gold at that time was much more closely held by the banking class and by governments. As a consequence, it could be controlled and throttled much more easily. So freeing silver, how do we free it so that it circulates again? So gold and silver have both been removed from the consciousness of investors in the general public since the 1987 creation of the London Bullion Marketing Association, or the LBME. And the price containment of both of these monetary metals was used to sideline investment interest, and it hides the monetary inflation of central banks as well, while they run increasingly loose monetary policy during this period. For a point of reference, the Fed funds rate, the overnight interest rate, was 19% in 1980, and it's been down to zero, and it's starting to creep back up again. And that would not have been possible if they didn't control the price of gold and silver, as they did using these unbacked trading certificates. Now, the LBMA substituted promissory notes, or unbacked contracts, for bullion, especially in the spot market, which makes up for more than 90% of the trading there. And this allows false price discovery. But the trading every day of up to 2.5 times annual mine supply in the gold market, and the same in the silver market, has allowed a false price discovery and exchange to happen, giving false signals in terms of the supply and demand for gold and silver. The LBMA's unbacked metal trading also was replicated in New York on the COMEX. The focus there is on the futures market, but the same deal, you do not have to have the metal to write a contract, and this allows printing of unlimited amounts of gold and silver. So gold and silver will circulate once the price suppression is removed and the recognition of both the value of these assets and concomitantly, we have an issue now with extraordinary price inflation, and the attention of citizens will be raised to these physical metals once the price containment is removed. Freeing silver. Now, just to give you a sense of the market, where the vault stocks are that we can see, the London vault stocks hold about 1 billion ounces of silver, and they've lost 180 million ounces of silver have been pulled out of those vaults in just the last 12 months. In the US, the COMEX vaults hold 340 million ounces of silver. So the total value of the silver at a $20 an ounce valuation is about $26.8 billion. But keep in mind that only a fraction of this metal is available to market. We'll go further here in estimating the amount that's available, but the vast majority is not available to market, especially at current prices. Market shortage, though, does prevent the use of selling paper contracts or promissory notes into the market to drive down the price. And an example of this that we've seen quite recently was the palladium market, where we saw a 5 times move in the price of silver in the next 24 months from early 2016 after a shortage of palladium hit the market. And be aware that with this 8 million ounce per year market in terms of consumption, there was still 8.5–9 million ounces visibly held in inventories. And similar to the current situation in silver, only a fraction of that was available to market. Shortage hit, and the manipulators were driven back from the market in terms of being able to sell these unallocated contracts or promissory notes into the market. So let's have a look at the supply and demand. How close is the market to shortage? So in the lower right there, we can see for 2019, 2020, 21, and 22, in the red underlined portion, we can see the annual deficits in silver. And this data is from the Silver Institute. And in the last 4 years, they estimate there's been a shortage of about 537 million ounces from the market. So this shortage is not met with recycling. That's already accounted for in the second line above under supply. But the shortage is meant of pulling of these 1,000-ounce commercial bars into the market. And what we can see now is in 2022, they estimate that there's about a 96 million ounce shortage in the market or a deficit, and that this will have to be met as well by the pulling of bars from stockpiles to satiate the demand. Now, how close are we? Continuing, we can see here, these are implied lease rates, and first of all, these are not the actual London rates. These are implied lease rates for silver. They are derived from futures market trading, and they typically are a few percent lower than the actual lease rate in London for these bars. But I think what is most notable is the ovoid on the right. What you can see there is this year in 2022, the spiking upwards of the implied lease rates, and these rates are higher now than they've been at any time back to 2009. After which silver saw a 4 times plus move in its price. The lease rates signal a tightness in the physical market, and so they're, in my view, a much better indication of the state of the market. You can't follow false price discovery numbers, but you can follow physical availability numbers such as the lease rate. And I think what we're seeing here is that the 96 million ounce drawdown this year is enough that it's putting tremendous tension into the physical markets. And here you can see in 2020, and this I'm just going to jump back for a second, but in 2020 there was about a 260 million ounce deficit that year, and that was met by the selling of these physical bars into the market. And you can see that the availability of the physical during that the COVID panic was enough to drive down the lease rates as the markets were flooded with silver sellers. But this year now we're seeing with, in round numbers, about 100 million ounce projected shortfall, not 250, but 100. We're seeing now this spike up in the lease rates, which is showing us that there's tension in the market and that there's a shortage for this physical metal. So we need, it appears, the price of silver now is about $20 an ounce. We can see the spiking lease rates indicating that there's tension, but we need an additional push to increase the physical demand to break free of the paper unallocated trading price containment. So how do we provide this additional push? And I'm putting forth here that we start to use silver as a payment mechanism. And you do this on a one-to-one basis. You pay your mechanic or your local store owner when you're buying. Obviously, smaller shops, I don't think Costco would take it. Contractors whom work for you, etc., etc., and the move to pay them in silver. Looking at the current spiking in lease rates, I'd argue that 100 million ounces of demand, and likely materially less than this, is enough to break the manipulation on the LB and the COMEX using promissory notes. And what we're seeing now is at current prices, in round numbers, 100 million ounces using a $25 an ounce price would be about $2.5 billion of metal cost at current prices. For a point of reference here, the U.S. economy is $25 trillion, which equates to 25,000 billion dollars per annum of exchange. So 100 million ounces of silver would only be 1/10,000th of the U.S. annual economic activity. So it's not a whole lot that needs to be utilized for exchange and payment to provide this kind of demand. And the other point here is that the paying with silver also generates additional silver investment demand. When you pay someone, you're alerting them to the value of silver. They can see the currency debasement and the currency destruction happening now because of central bank policy. And it's likely that you're turning the light on for them and they start looking more into silver and using silver as an investment vehicle in the store of wealth as well. So it goes beyond just the actual exchange that you're doing. Difficult to estimate exactly what that is, but suffice it to say that that would lever on the 100 million ounces of demand created by payment under this scenario. So as physical shortage starts to manifest, the banks shorting silver will have to retreat, just as they did in the 2016 palladium market. And I mentioned that earlier. They cannot sell into the market and knock out the stop losses in the market by selling unbacked promissory notes. So in these shortage scenarios, metal beats paper promissory notes. If you try to sell a promissory note into the market when there's intense shortage, odds are you get asked for delivery and then you face default if you can't secure the metal. Now, as the price runs from this shortage and the increasing use of silver, the 25 billion ounces of silver distributed globally in citizen hands will slowly start to circulate. First very slowly and then more quickly. Envision it as this giant wheel which has been frozen in time by the paper markets, and it starts to slowly turn. And additional use creates additional demand as the word gets out and people start to understand the value of using silver as a payment mechanism. That will create additional demand for the silver for payment as well as the investment demand mentioned earlier. And the circulation of a silver sound money parallel silver payment system, it will end the paper market intervention, because it will continue to intensify as use increases, and it will place the power back in the hands of citizens as silver and as a knock on gold ultimately repriced. So the metal is highly distributed in our society, and as people start to wake up and realize that they actually hold silver that they've long forgotten about because it was valued so lowly, the power will be returned to citizens, and they will be able to make choices, and importantly, they will be able to bypass this central bank digital currency being promoted by the WEF crowd and their supporters. So yeah, an operating sound money payment system bypasses the CBDC, and really importantly, it also bypasses the social credit control system, because it's a transaction you're not doing on your digital phone with the digital stalkers monitoring you and making choices about your life for you. So this will take time, but with every great journey, it starts with a first step. Now here are my basic contact informations. If you like the presentation, please remember to give it a thumb up. I've just started today a Substack where I'll be posting my material. It's there, jensondavid.substack.com. And my videos are also posted on Gab and Telegram, as well as YouTube, BitChute, Brighteon, and some of the Odyssey and some of these other platforms as well. So if you see them there, please remember to give them a thumbs up. It's very valuable in terms of generating followership. Okay, thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing everybody's comments and joining the discussion.